Nerds International proudly presents
Hello and welcome to the 3T RPG podcast. My name is Harrison Hunt and with me is Nicholas Lamberley.
Will somebody feed me?
And of course we have got James the James Clark.
Well, good day.
So this is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, but before we begin, I would like to thank our Patreons who donate at the Dreadlord and Devil King levels on Patreon. There's Ace B, Dreadlord, Ryan Wahab, Dreadlord, Julian Burnick, Dreadlord. That's right. So, you too can join our Dark Army at Patreon. And, I know that, you probably think, oh, that's just a quirky name for their patrons. No, we are actually doing it, and we intend to take over the world. Well,
oh yes.
Start with England, but eventually.
One piece at a time.
Yeah,
exactly.
One piece of the puzzle at a time. So
if you're in England, watch out. Just in case the police are listening, This is a joke. But everyone at Patreon, wink, you know. Anyway, today we got some good bloody segments. We got feedback, we got what you've been saying, where we talk about what we've been playing, and we got the main subject, which is going to be the second RPG ever made. What could it be? Well, just listen, will you? Stop being so bloody impatient.
Yeah,
and then
God's sake.
And then we got electro letters, followed by our award-winning outro. Don't know about you guys, but my back is hungry.
Oh, yeah. Well, you better get some food and feed it then.
Yep, let's feed my back.
The feedback side. The feedback side. Yes, bitch, the feedback side. It's the feedback section.
Yeah, we take your comments and read them out. Yeah, feedback, bitch.
First feedback comes in from Richard Walcock. He says, I can't believe Harrison made you sit on the floor. He's talking about, during the Deadlands episode, we had Owen Lean on, who's a bit of a Deadlands expert, and his chair was so noisy. But it was ridiculous, wasn't it, Nick?
Yeah, it was. It was like screaming in the background.
I know. I mean, where did he get his chair? Post-war Afghanistan.
Squeaky chairs are us.
That's it. I hate that shop.
I hate that shop. It's not as bad as wobbly tables for you, but it's pretty up there, isn't it?
Mate, the amount of glasses I've smashed because of wobbly tables for you. I mean, the prices are good, but the tables, it's just not worth it.
No.
Fucking hell, what is this? Anyway, Richard carries on and he says, Owen, at 57.50, Harrison started talking about playing prostitutes in Deadlands. Then at 58.22, you described a new edge called Hammer Fanning. Wrong. He's talking about hammer fanning in Deadlands. Look, anyway, I think we've been pretty clear that this show is serious, and stop turning this into a house of jokes, Richard.
Yeah, Richard Rulecock.
You piece of shit. Next one comes in from Per Norden. He says, you sure knock it out the ballpark with this one, and he is talking about our new Tunnels and Trolls actual play that we started up. Yay. And he says, we'll binge listening the DCC eps while waiting for number 2.
Good idea.
That's a good idea.
That is a good idea, yeah. Get stuck into the back.
I think everyone should do that.
Yeah, go check them out.
Everyone just do it.
I think we're starting up the APs, kind of different format for now, but we're doing it during the lockdown. We're going to do some ones over the internet, slightly shorter ones, but yeah, we're kind of back with it. It's a little side story to the Foreign Beggars. It was set in the same universe, so yeah, go and check that out. And Rachel Gator commenting on the AP as well. She says, "I'm 100% invested at Panache in the Gash."
Ooh,
Panache the Gash.
Exactly, and if we need to sell you on the AP even more, James is playing a fairy with a penchant for the ladies, and he says,
"Oh yeah,"
he says he's got the panache with the gash at some point. And actually, one of your character's talents is panache, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's it. He's a player and he's a slayer.
Good.
And he's a fairy. It's brilliant.
Right, we've got one last feedback in from Jacob Men. It's a bit of a long one, but I'm going to get through this real quick. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. I've been working my way through your podcast after I mostly finished the Murder Hobo Show and Wild Die. First off, don't know why you picked those first, but never mind. Though now falling behind on those as I work through your backlog. Yes, all the way back from episode 1, and I'm currently on episode 13. Anyway, I just found out that there is a new edition of Big Eyes, Small Mouth out from a new publisher. I played it back in the day, 2nd and 3rd edition. I like the fact that you like games like Maid, Savage Worlds and GURPS so much made me think this system might be up your alley. If I recall correctly, it was a generic point-buy system with a similar take on powers as Savage Worlds, meaning you colour things with trappings, whether magic, technological or something else. There are a few settings based on anime licensed originally, like Trigun, Sailor Moon, which were very popular at the time. Anyway, I thought this might be worth your time to talk about and give your thoughts on the Intercomputer Cast Pod show."
Nice.
Ooh.
Have either of you heard of Big Eyes, Small Mouth before?
Can't say I have, no.
No, I have not.
Here's the trouble I have with it, and I'm sure it's actually really good, but the trouble I have is when people make an anime role-playing game, right? Because anime isn't really a genre. So it's like, that's a comedy anime game, right? And comedy anime, they may have different settings, but that's a genre, right? Whereas Big Eyes, Small Mouth, it's like, it tries to do everything, and I'm a bit worried that it won't do any of them that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
I go with
Big
you.
eyes, small mouth sounds like like an old proverb, innit? You must have big eyes and small mouth, meaning like look at a lot and don't say much.
That's a really good point. Chinese
Do you know
proverbs
what I mean?
say big eyes, small mouth, big wise. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I probably will end up checking it out. Because if there's a Sailor Moon setting for it, yes, I like it. Shut up, sue me. But anyway, point is that if there's a Sailor Moon setting, I'm sure I would really like to play that. As would you, James. And Nick would just force you, hold you down.
Yeah. Hold you down and
you play
shove it down
I'll give
your
it a go.
small mouth.
Look, I'm not one of them people that wouldn't give everything a try. You know that when it comes to role-playing games. So, you know, it's always worth a bash. You never know. And when you're pleasantly surprised, that's the best. So, you know, I never knew a Scooby-Doo game would be one of the best games I ever played, and it was.
Yeah, and also I bought it because I thought, oh, this will be a laugh. Let's review it on the podcast. And it was really fucking fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that comedy adventure with the, trying to hide a dungeon from a load of potential investors for a skeleton king was probably one of the funniest games ever.
That was good fun.
Brilliant.
And that was surprising, but it is the sort of one where it's like a bit embarrassing to tell people that's what you've been playing at games like. Your wife's like, was it good? And you're just like, yes. Okay, moving on.
All you'd have to do is just change the name of Maid to Maid of Death, and it sounds more like an RPG than
yeah, there you go, yeah.
Oh my
fantasy
God,
game.
Nick, that's it. You figured it out. You just say of death. Dungeons and Dragons
just put
of death.
at the end, and it sounds anything makes it a fantasy.
Big Eyes, Small Mouth of Death. Anyway, Jake finishes his email and he says, "P.S. I'm glad to see how quickly you got celebrity endorsements. Alan Rickman, Beyonce, Gary Coleman. Amazing." Yeah, I sort of, when I look back on our really old episodes, I do get very embarrassed. But at least this guy's sticking with us, which means he's probably mentally ill, and that's not a bad joke to make, because so are we. So shut up.
We do get better. So if he likes it now, then hopefully I like it even more towards the episodes that actually
it's
get
good. It's going to be
good.
months before he hears this one.
Oh, that's true, yeah. No, unless he's on an absolute binge fest, he'll catch up
knows?
tomorrow.
I hope he's not.
No, so do I. Oh God, you don't want to listen to our voices for like hours on end.
I don't even like talking because my voice is so annoying. Anyway,
this podcast is the only time we do talk.
Yeah, because we got small mouth. Anyway,
big eyes.
Let's get on to what you've been saying and talk about what we've been playing.
And one of these. Oi, yeah? What you slaying?
First up, we've been. Let's talk about Nick's Destiny game. So, Destiny, for those that don't know, is a sci-fi shooter set in space and our solar system, and you basically humanity's fucked. These aliens called the Fallen are happening, and you got to sort them out. And Nick is running a session of that video game, but he's doing it within Cypher System by Monty Cook. And it's been really, really fun so far. So, Nick, tell us about the last couple of episodes of your Destiny game and how it went.
Yeah, well, it was after getting over obviously the the attack of the river or the rapids, you guys have actually started to properly get into Destiny life. You went out on your first official mission, if you like, and it was to recover a fire drive, and it's like a piece of ancient technology that basically they can use to power up your new ships. Things are a bit tight in this Destiny world, and the Guardians of some of their tech starting to run out. So you guys basically went on a mission to Earth on Earth to retrieve this fire drive. Now your ships are all fired up, ready to go. There's been a lot of it's not so much downtime, but it's tower time, isn't it? When you guys are basically at the tower, you've got your own kind of small story arcs going on, which are quite hilarious. Harrison's character's accidentally got involved with some criminals. We've got a romance developing between one of the characters and a waitress that works at the bar, which Sean's character also works part-time at the bar. I don't know how he's been roped into a part-time bar job, but he has. And it's just you guys have finally got your ship. You've got off planet. You was given your first mission off planet, and it was to basically go to Titan, which is like a water-filled methane planet, and try and stop one of the outposts being overrun, basically by a siege of Fallen and Cabal that were both honing in on your guys' positions to try and steal technology off you. So I'm trying to keep it kind of high adventure and have a lot of kind of interesting social aspects to it as well.
Well, if you
I
watch,
hope you guys are enjoying it.
it kind of makes me think of, I don't know why I immediately went to this, but anyone that's aware of the Gundam series, 008th MS Team, which is a great one. Some of the best parts of it are not when they're fighting big robots, but when they're back in the base and there's drama between them. And I think that because in Cypher System, basically, like you can pick an arc, and for example, mine is do something to aid an organization, and it's these gangsters I've accidentally got tied up with, and you during the downtime you kind of go through these arcs and earn things for your character and go through a story. And it's been some of the absolute most fun. My character,
it's been ridiculous.
What's funny is, James, you're playing an Exo. We are basically humanoid robots, and his character is trying in a very philosophical and intelligent way to figure out who he was, his backstory, his place in the world. And my character is his logic is kind of different because I'm also an Exo, but I'm kind of trying to figure it out by testing the limits of my own morality. So I keep on doing bad stuff and also balancing out with good stuff and trying to figure out, am I a good guy? And I think he's starting to settle more that he's kind of an anti-hero outsider kind of guy, because he's mainly cares about himself. And I mean, for example, Sean, one of the other players, his character's called Phoenix. He brought his girlfriend along on a mission and got a big telling off, and I made a big deal of it in front of our bosses to try and get him in trouble so that I, by proxy, would look good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about, actually, because Nick mentioned the River Gate. Let's talk about River Gate.
Oh, dear.
Well, the River Gate. So, what it was basically, it was like our first sort of, it wasn't even a mission at the time. We were just traversing some, just traversing some ground. Yeah, we had to get somewhere. And then essentially there were some baddies on a bridge, and we made quick work of them. So, we
baddies. I thought you meant like some bad drugs on a bridge.
some bad dudes that we needed to expunge. Now we took them down in like actual seconds, but then we spent maybe the next half hour or hour of real life time falling in the river and pretty much not being able to get out and almost dying. Honestly, we all thought it was going to be a TPK from a fucking river.
Yeah, I should add that I wasn't being a dick or anything. These guys were just having really bad rolls. No,
it was even like, okay, so in Cypher System, like, to find the difficulty task of a thing, it's just the difficulty rating times by 3, right? And Nick was like, okay, you've been in the river for a bit now, I'm going to lower it to a 3. All you need to do is beat a 6. And then it was like, right, roll a 2. Cool, we're still in the fucking river. And it was all because we were trying to climb this tower and get to an engram up there, which is basically like a loot chest. Somebody fell in. Somebody tried to get them out. Somebody then fell in as well. Everyone fell in. The only person that was
Someone couldn't find a stick.
Yeah. And then the only person that was left on the shore was our hunter, Manuel, and he was just looking at us like face palming. We were just like, no, you gotta help us.
It was funny because Sean tried to save us, and like he was out, and then he was just like, "Here, grab this," and fell in.
Got pulled in, yeah.
It was so funny, man. It was so stupid and funny.
Oh, mate.
But yeah, that's
Yeah, it was
basically
cracking.
for Destiny so far. I mean, basically, you know, we're Guardians. We're trying to save the I guess it's not necessarily humans, but all humanoid or Earth dwellers. Let's put it that way. We're trying to save Earth.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
It's pretty.
Oh yeah, and you've been given a new task now because the kind of relationship between civilians at the tower and Guardians has kind of waned over the years. Your kind of boss has decided that he wants to kind of invigorate the love for Guardians again, so he's charged you with a small film team to start trying to film some of your best bits.
Yeah, and he's currently got a lot of our worst bits.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is that we there were some people that remembered that the film crew were with us, and some that didn't. And I made an absolute arse of myself on my ship, forgetting that they were all in there with me.
Yeah, straight away.
Essentially, and I'm just going to say this with no context, but I was arguing with one of the other characters back in the tower, and so we kind of had a little race going on. We were racing our ships on the way to the next mission. And before we were out of orbit, he flies over me, tips his ship upside down, opens the window and pisses down onto my ship. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to roleplay and go along with this. So I said, all right, I need some air in this bitch. And I opened up the roof of my ship and then took a mouthful of it. And the film crew were just absolutely sitting there watching me do this. So, yeah, thanks.
Good start.
Yeah, exactly. All right, but next up, I actually I played my first ever game of DCC as well. I've run it a lot, obviously, for years now, but I played my first ever game and I got to play with Brendan LaSalle of X-Crawl fame. He wrote this amazing setting about dungeon crawling in like a fantasy future where it's become a sport. And he used some of the things in that. But yeah, basically the DCC game I played, we had something like 8 players, and we worked for this like kind of evil wizard, and at some point this identical wizard's tower pops up on the other side of town, just full of weird alien creatures. And that was a great adventure, really fun. But the thing is, what we did is we played an all magic user game. So
Nice.
Yeah, and it was really cool because one thing that we don't really use in our APs of DCC is simply because it can end up being a bit cumbersome to listen to, is Mercurial Magic. And what this means is that your spells have some sort of added effect every time you use them. So one of our guys had Magic Missile, but every time he fired it, like D12 copies of himself would appear next to him. And the first fight that we had just ended up like a stadium concert full of copies of this bloke. Like there were so many of them, and it was like becoming increasingly harder to hit anything because you couldn't see anything amongst the crowd. It was pretty awesome.
Mental.
But I'd say it was good, and it sort of reinvigorated my love for that game because it's been a little while now since I've played it, and I was just like, man, I remember why this is so fucking good. And especially as a Magic user, you there's so much unpredictability that it just makes it just so much fun. And I was like, I need to play this more. I need to play it again, maybe.
Oh,
but
miss it.
I also played. I've started a weekly game with my close personal best friend Jeff Goad from the Spellburn podcast. Name drop. Anyway, so Jeff is my new best friend, and I've been playing gutted James.
Fucking Jeff.
Yeah, so we played one session of, it was Old School Essentials, which is essentially a retro clone of AD&D / Labyrinth Lord. It's basically like, a house ruled AD&D that we're playing, and essentially what it is that we all come from this town called Goblin Hill, and he's got basically a massive list of pre-gens, everything rolled randomly, so even the names, to the point where one of the characters was called Benoist, like Benoit but with an ST at the end, but we all just call him Benoist, which is pretty funny.
Benoist.
Anyway, one of the cool things he did is before the game even started, he said everyone can start a rumour about the town, or say they've heard this rumour, right? And Jeff will ultimately be the arbiter of which ones are true and which ones aren't. But we start with, because there was 7 players, we started with 7 really fucking funny rumours to begin with. And and we've got all these things we can investigate. Anyway, there's this wizard that wants us to capture the gasp of a succubus. So that's where we're at the moment.
Gasp of a succubus?
Yeah, so we have to capture it somehow. So not only did we have to research how to capture that, we also had to figure out where a succubus was, and we went to there's this lake in town, and on the north side the expensive prostitute huts are there, and on the south side the cheap ones are, and we figured out there's a succubus on the cheap side of town. So we're trying to get follow some of our clients in, capture this gasp, and some of us were saying we might capture the actual woman herself. But the highlight of the game was the fact that my character is a lizard dealer, so I deal in exotic pets basically. And one character who went down immediately just because we were trying to capture a lizard, and he got bitten by it, and he happened to only have 1 hit point, and he went down.
Oh no!
And all of our other characters immediately forgot him, and were just like, "Who was that? I remember somebody else being." Ah, no, they're probably.
Remember that dude?
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was really fun.
Is it an investigative game?
At the moment, yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Which is really fun, and I think we'll probably have some more fighty episodes and things like this. But at the moment, all we did was investigate, and it was really, really immensely fun. And obviously, those OSR games, they're just super easy to get into, and I like the way that he runs it as well, where it's all collaborative, and we're making up details about the town as well. Like,
yeah, that's really cool.
As much as I hate him because he's stealing you away from me, I do really like the fact that your mission is to capture a gasp of a succubus. That is proper like high fantasy stuff, and that's like sounds well good.
It does, and but the interesting thing is once we figured out, we went to visit this hag in the swamp, and she told us that to capture it, you just need to breathe it in at the same time, right? So you should be kissing her or something like this, which is it's gross and it's funny. But I suggested that we get a really long tube, feed it into the room. And then when we know a client's in there, we just and everyone, I don't know why they didn't go with it. Everyone was like, no, we could just hide out, or one of us could go in. Yeah, it's a demon that has sex with you until you die. Yeah, let's go in.
And you're just standing there going, guys.
Yeah. No, you should use one of those air blowers for fire pits, but then just to use it in the opposite direction to suck it.
Also a good idea. I mean,
one of them things that you suck bugs up with.
yeah.
Just use a Hoover. Invent a Hoover and use that.
Yeah, well, it's a magic item, but surely, Yeah, anyway, exactly. The very last thing we did is that Jeff, after the game, he said he's got this weird naming convention for all the days and the months of the year, and they end up making these really cool combinations of words, so we're allowed to invent one festival. So I invented the Flying Wheels Festival, where it's like basically a wagon race in town, and the winner gets a pig. So
nice.
These have all now become like canon festivals. It's really, really fun.
That sounds wicked.
All right, so that is it for what we've been slaying or playing. You see what we did there?
Oh, hey.
No,
do you guys, clever. I don't know about you, but I am starving for a main subject.
Yeah.
Oh, cannot wait.
I've been hankering for a shankering.
Feed me.
No, that was last segment, Nick.
Oh, shit.
Main. Subject. Magic. Main. Subject. Tokyo. Main. Subject.
So, yeah, right, okay, all right then.
Okay.
So, okay.
Right, yes, okay.
Baseline.
Big tune.
All right, so, yeah, would you please... I'm
Stop
trying
DJing.
to create art here.
I'm trying to be professional.
Trying.
Yes.
Failing.
You're listening to Jeremy Vine.
Are we?
All right, so today we're going to be talking about the second RPG ever made. We're going to go a little bit into the history of it, and then we're going to talk about the system itself and is it good. But let's just get right into it, shall we? We all know that D&D was the first commercially available role-playing game ever, and that it descended from a historical war game called Chainmail, also created by Gygax. And while Chainmail did later include fantasy elements, it was D&D that was made available by TSR and became the sensation that it was back in the mid-70s. Now, while TSR went on to make other RPGs, including Top Secret, which is the second RPG they ever published, In the early days of TSR's life, they were mostly spent supporting D&D with modules, supplements, blah, blah, blah. But what if you didn't like D&D? What if you thought it was too complicated, bloated, and full of contradictions? Well, let's go back, guys. Let's jump in the old time machine and go back to 1975. A man named Ken St. Andre was working as a librarian in Phoenix, Arizona, and while he should have been stacking books, he was reading his mate's copy of D&D. And with every new page comes more disappointment, more confusion, and more outright rage. He yells, "Fuck this," and turns to leave the library. Furiously, he kicks an elderly wheelchair-bound woman in the face and declares, "I quit. I'm going to make my own fantasy RPG rules," much to the confusion of his colleagues who didn't know what a fantasy RPG was. And I'll just point out that some parts of that story were fabricated. But the thing is, when I was looking up Ken St. Andre's history, it's like, there's not much out there, so I got to fluff it up a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, it's the only bit that they really talk about is just how much of a rad dude he is.
Boom, successful.
Ken St. Andre may not have actually done any of that stuff, but he did find the D&D rules to be annoying, confusing, and believed they served to put off new players. So, speaking in an interview at the time, he said, "I just wanted something I could play with my friends at a reasonable price, with reasonable equipment." And so, retailing at $2.95 and utilising only the humble D6, Ken St. Andre's game, Tunnels and Trolls, was self-published after being in development less than a year and coming out April 1975, which was just 1 year after D&D.
Wow. Amazing.
So great was the game, and so reasonable the price that it got quickly snatched up by a bigger publisher, Flying Buffalo Inc., who got a second edition just out a few months later in June 1975. Now, this radical new RPG was compared by many to the punk movement, doing radical things like being easily understandable, being cheap, and being playable with stuff you already have. So, I don't know, the guy's... I know it seems stupid now, but at the time, this guy's a maverick, It's like... And we discussed on our DICE episode, about how difficult D20s were to obtain at the time, and how people, made up their own little systems with darts or playing cards and shit. So I think that his concern, Ken St. Andre, about being like that he wanted it to be easily accessible is completely fair, and you can't argue with that price.
No.
I mean, I do think it's ridiculous how much some RPG books cost nowadays. Do you know the Pathfinder 2nd edition is 70 quid?
What?
Oh, fuck me, is it?
Why? Do you get more for your money, or is it just because Paizo's in trouble?
Probably the latter, Nick. But the thing is like, I think what they did is they went, well, all 3 D&D books cost 30 quid. So
we got to do what they're doing. How about you provide a bit of value for money? Ooh.
Yeah, there is also that. I mean, the fact that D&D is split into 3 is a piss take anyway. But
it's like Shadowrun, 50 quid for the book, and it's like, should we even bother putting any effort into the actual construction of this book, or be all right? And then what? Falls apart.
Tell you what fucking pisses me off. I bought Adventures in Middle-earth, which is a really, really cool thing for D&D 5e, and in that they provide only a part of Middle-earth as the campaign setting. And it's like, so if you want to go to Mirkwood or the Lonely Mountains or something like this, it's like, here's this other supplement. So if you want to do the whole journey through through Middle-earth, then you have to buy all these books. But anyways, so Ken St. Andre, he has this radical idea that books should be affordable, and he actually manages it, which is fucking awesome. And he just comes along, on his motorbike, and he's like, just use a bunch of D6s and speeds off with armfuls of chicks riding on the back of his hog.
Smoking a cigarette.
No, he's not smoking a cigarette. He's smoking 5, mate.
5 cigarettes with D6s in his other hand,
whilst
as
chewing
well as
on
the chicks.
Whilst chewing on a dice.
He puts one in his mouth, and you see this horrible crunch. He smiles toothlessly and speeds off. But yeah, basically, I don't know. He's a bit of a maverick. He goes out, makes his
Renegade.
own game, when really this wasn't even known by anyone as a hobby. But in fact, in 1999, an edition of Pyramid magazine, the editor Scott Herring had this to say about the game. He says, "Everybody knows this was the second ever fantasy role-playing game, but to dismiss it as an opportunistic rip-off would be grossly unfair. Flying Buffalo's TNT had its own zany feel. It was much less serious than D&D and less complicated as a game system." So as you can see, this is why it became D&D's main competitor very quickly. Mainly because it was its only competitor, but also partly because, it was reaching out and doing its own thing. It wasn't taking itself too seriously. It was using stuff you already had, and it was making it way less complicated. But let's rewind back to 1979. TNT's 5th edition is released, but this time it's worldwide, releasing in UK, Europe, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Japan, and Namibia. And it was Japan where the game actually saw huge success, where to this day it remains one of the country's top role-playing games, behind Call of Cthulhu and Sword World.
Amazing.
Ooh.
One of the innovations Tunnels and Trolls made was its wealth of solo content. And so in the UK, the 5th edition version was the same size as those Choose Your Own Adventure books that you could get at the time.
Yeah. Nice.
And they were hugely popular in the UK. And
Pocket
actually in the UK, they only sold solo modules, because that's what we did in the UK at the time. And they just know, we're just a bunch of sad, lonely...
Sad,
We have
lonely
no
people.
friends.
I sit in the corner with my book.
Ken, should we release any of those GM modules in the UK? And they take one look at us and go, no.
No. People like that don't have friends.
Well, that's the thing. It's like that video that that's been floating around recently, because it's called like Just an Average UK Day at the Pub.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a bunch of really old, like 3 old people dancing. One really young, sort of like tarted up chav girl, and then a midget walks across the screen, and it's like,
Yeah.
I imagine like the American like guys in Ken St. Andre and Flying Buffalo, they just probably saw that video and just went, no, it's not for them.
No.
Nope.
It's not. They can't handle this.
Yeah, they need to do this on their own. They can't be trusted together. Look at them, a mess.
Look at these Englishmen.
Now, guys, I would like you to guess how much Tunnels and Trolls cost in the UK, and try to pretend, if you can, for suspense reasons, that we didn't already record this and this is the re-record.
Okay, I'm going to guess, and I'm going to say maybe, if I think of D&D prices, but also the release of the few dollars, I'd probably say about maybe 10, 15 quid.
That's good, James. See, that was really convincing. It's almost
I'm
like
going to say $9.99.
$9.99. No, it was actually $1.95. But thanks for keeping the dream alive there. It was a bargain. And now you can play your solo adventures at home, then bring your seasoned, battle-hardened character into games with your friends. So that's kind of one of the reasons it has solo adventures. Because let's say, for example, like a lot of game groups can only get together once a month or once every couple of months, and now you can just play a bunch of these solo adventures, come back with your leveled up character. Although, as you can probably guess, it's really open to exploitation.
Yeah, only if you have those dicks in your group who's like, yeah, I just totally went on a 2,000 adventure.
But it says here that you're a god. That's not even a playable race in this game.
Yeah, but played so much that I basically made the game.
Ken St. Andre called me up and said that I've completed it, so
It's fine. Gave me god privileges. Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so if you doubt me, you're doubting the word of Ken St. motherfucking Andre, so shut up.
And everyone goes,
So basically, I'm the new DM, and game over, I win.
Imagine that. Yeah,
it's called the Barry game from now
it's
on.
called Barry's game. So shut up.
Tunnels and Trolls by Barry.
He just rolls one dice and he goes, I win forever, and then jumps out the window.
And it just walks out. Ken picks him up. Let's get out of here.
It's you and me from now on, baby. We don't need these chumps.
Come on, Barry.
God, this has got weird real fast, eh? Anyway, this is kind of where the history of the game gets a little bit weird, right? Because it wasn't until 2005 that we would see an update in the rules, so it was a long bloody time, and this was 5.5 edition, so it added 40 extra pages, but additionally, that year, a different publisher called Fiery Dragon Productions were licensed to produce a 30th anniversary box set. Now, this box included a bunch of cool shit for use with Tunnels and Trolls, but also included 2 new versions of the rules.
Don't get it.
What that means, I'm not entirely sure what the point of that is, but because why would you want 2 versions of the same rules? Fuck knows. But anyway, thus far there have been 6 versions, right? So, and the 30th anniversary one became known as 7th edition, despite the fact that the previous version was 5.5, not 6, but it was the 6th version. So, anyway, but 8th edition was French only for some reason, and is a mix of the update to the box set version called 7.5 and edition 5.5. So that's 8th edition, right? But don't worry about all of that, right? Because those ones aren't widely played or widely circulated. Today, we're at 9th edition, and this, as it says at the beginning of the book, is supposed to be the definitive one, right? This is the version of Tunnels and Trolls, and they want it to stay for a long time. So it's called Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls, not 9th edition.
Nice.
And let me tell you, although this game has had more updates than any other game in the entire world, the Flying Buffalo website has not been updated in a long time. Long time. I see the main inspiration for it's like an art piece, right? The main inspiration for the website is the classic days of Yahoo GeoCities.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
you guys are taking a look at it, right? Nick, give us a little description of the old site there.
Oh, it's an old build, that's for sure. It's got like a menu bar that runs down the side with hyperlinks, and there's no actual kind of catalogue, and there's no shopping cart per se. It's more of a case of you press a button, didn't you, and then you send a message to someone to get a book.
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? Is that I sent Ken some money, right? And I would have just sent him money anyway because he's so dreamy. But the point is, I sent him money in exchange for a book, and all I had to do was I click on the product list, and it's just a big list. It's basically like a notepad document, full of like 200 different products, and you just click the one you want and just PayPal them some money and then email them to tell them that you've ordered it. It's mad, right? And so I was bloody scared for a bit because I'd sent them, imagine, postage from America is a lot of money, right? So I sent them a lot of my money, and then I emailed them and said, by the way, I've ordered this. 2 weeks pass, right? And I send them another message, just wondering if you got a tracking number. Get an email back, no tracking number, sorry. That's all it says, right? And then another week passes, so it's been 3 weeks, and I email them saying, just want to check if this was definitely sent. And then I get an email back, Ken, he tells me it was sent 3rd week of May, no tracking number, sorry. Right, and I'm like, fuck, I've been scammed. I've definitely been scammed. You take
Ken's
one look at our
done,
website, it may as well have been a Nigerian prince that made it, right? And I'm like, anyway, so but it arrived 2 days ago. It arrived 2 days ago after a whole month, which is, reasonable actually considering the times we live in. But fucking, I was so scared,
I'm
boys.
not surprised. Not surprised at all.
It's mad. It's really mad. And
do you know what's quite funny though? They have updated. So there's a banner there that equally looks just as old as the original design of the website, but it says 1970 to 2020. Someone's updated the banner, not the style, but the name.
Oh my god.
The year, sorry.
Yeah, done on Microsoft Paint.
I've got a thing there that's like, there's a thing that says, and also the Nuclear War card game. I thought, that sounds interesting. Clicked it, link not found.
Ah, good. Broken links as expected. I like it.
You just got to go, and the thing is, you just got to go on the product page, which, by the way, has no descriptions of their games or anything like this. You've got to already know you want it before you go on that website. It's not a good one to browse, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
What was interesting as well, I found that there is a page, right, that lists all of the Tunnels and Trolls products with a kind of with the description of each one and a little picture of the cover, but they all link to Drive-Thru RPG. So for a long time I thought, okay, well, this product just isn't in print anymore, but I thought, just on a whim, I'll email them to see if they have it, and that's how I discovered the product list. So yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre website, and let's call it what it is. Their customer service, or at least their sort of manners, are lacking. They make a mean product, but they don't know how to do much else.
They don't know how to do talking.
No tracking number.
Sorry. I get the sense that he wasn't sorry either.
They sell T-shirts with a germ on the front, super germ.
Why?
Maybe it's from something. I don't know. Super germ's weird looking. Oh, God.
They should sell a T-shirt that just says no tracking number on it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry on the back.
Hold on, I need to show you guys this. Check this out. That's the super germ T-shirt.
What the fuck is that?
Fuck, that's so weird. It looks like a what the
it's
fuck?
It's a triangular green
Shrek. No, it's not.
Yes,
it's that guy from Goonies. You guys. It's him, but in triangle.
And then it just says Super Germ. That is the weird. James' sort of groan of displeasure. Anyway, right, let's crack on. So Ken St. Andre is actually still alive and kicking. He's like 120 years old now, and he shows no signs of ill health. Sorry, I don't know why I said
He's
that.
mostly machine these days, but
yeah. He's got wires. He's a super jump.
That explains his inability to talk on a human level. But anyway, he wrote the current edition on the back of his motorbike. So that's basically
I thought you were going to say on the back of a napkin.
Anyway, that's basically the history of the world's most second role-playing game. But is it good? Well, let's dive in.
Oh, you must pass the dungeon wisdom test.
So the intro of the game kind of demonstrates how old school the game is and tells you how it's basically it's a game of limited information. That's kind of what it says. And it's like the GM, shares stuff with the players. They're welcome to draw their own maps and blah, blah, blah. But it's all about just sharing with them what they see and what they want to do and stuff like this. So it's built for theatre of the mind. And that'll be demonstrated later on with the mechanics of the game. But what follows is usually what is a role-playing game stuff, and then we go into character creation. So this is super fucking simple, right? To determine your stats, you roll 3d6 8 times and assign them to strength, con, dex, speed, IQ, whiz, luck, and charisma. And all of these are self-explanatory, but it's worth noting that dex and speed are separated. So dex is used for sort of hand dexterity, such as lock-picking, doing the complex actions required to do spells and blah, 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 right? Whereas speed is literally just how fast you are. Wizardry is like your mana or your power points. It's a spendable resource used for spells. But here's the cool thing with the character creation. Yeah, you roll 3d6 for each stat, but it's got a rule called Taro, Taro, which means triples always roll over. Basically, you get any triples, they explode, and you add it to your current score, and there is no upper limit to your scores. So I've seen a character who was a dwarf start off with 30 strength, for example. So with good luck, you can have some crazy stats.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so once you've rolled all your stats, you determine your personal adds. So basically, for each point over 12 in luck, strength, dex, and speed, you gain 1 personal add. And this is basically your bonuses for combat. That's it. And so once you've rolled all your stats and determined all of your personal adds, it's time to pick a class. So you've got only 3 in this game. You've got warriors, wizards, and rogues. And warriors gain plus 1d6 to their weapon rolls per level. So it's basically just your standard combat roll. And they get double the protection from armor too. Wizards can use magic and start with every first level spell and can learn/invent new spells as they level up. And at each new level, the wizardry cost for spells lower than your current level goes down by 1 point. Simple. Now, rogues, these guys, I know what you're thinking, they're not thieves, right? But they are, they're kind of rogue wizards is a good way of putting it. So they can use any weapon. Wizards can only use ones up to a 2d6 score. But rogues can use any weapon. They just don't get the bonuses that fighters do. But they only get, one spell to start off with, one spell that they can feasibly use, and then after that they have to learn them. But because rogues are rogues, they'll never get taught them by Wizards College. So basically, to get any spell is basically a quest for a rogue.
Back alley wizardry.
Yeah,
it is back alley wizardry, which is pretty cool. So and it is awesome like that. And that's basically it for the 3 classes. That's literally it. I mean, there's another one called a specialist as well, where if you did manage to roll a 3 above, any one of your scores, you can be a specialist, and it's basically you converse with the DM and get a special ability based on that thing. So let's say, for example, you rolled an exceptional luck score. Maybe your guy you get a cool gambling ability that you where you get free rerolls on gambling.
You're very good with or something. Yeah, I like it.
Exactly. And that's basically it. I mean, there's some other rules for optional classes like berserkers, martial artists, specialists, as I've already mentioned. But let's say, in this game there are no healers. So if you wanted to play a healer, then you play a wizard and focus on healing spells. If you want to play a thief, you play a warrior, but be a sneaky warrior. Or you could play a rogue with the unlocking spells, whatever,
Yeah.
So it's more about customization and backstory than it is about mechanics, as it were.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too. Well done,
Me
Ken.
3.
Anyway, so you have to pick a race too, right? And the default races are humans, dwarves, elves, fairies, hobs, they call them, and leprechauns. I imagine because hobbits are copyrighted by Tolkien. Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin.
Macaulay Culkin. It all makes sense now.
I don't know what you mean by that, Nick. It all
Neither do
makes
I.
sense. Everything is falling into line.
Home Alone is Lord of the Rings. I knew
There's a
it.
lot of similarities, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that there. But yeah, how the races work in this game is really simple, right? Every time you pick a race, you just multiply or divide up your scores. So dwarves get 2 times the strength score that you rolled at the beginning, and like a hobbit multiplies their dex and luck by 1.5, basically. And that's basically it. That's what the races do. Now, as a result, those are the default good races, right? So in the world, you play one of those guys. But if you want to, you can play a monster, and they're listed in terms of rarity, and it means that there's just a big table of monsters, and you can play any one of them. You can be a vampire, you can be a dragon, you can be
Nice.
cave jelly, whatever you
That'd
want.
be awesome. Imagine that, being a dragon.
Or
Imagine
being
being
a
a
jelly.
cave jelly.
Be good
I wanna
playing
play
like
jelly.
an all jelly campaign.
Imagine
I'd love
if you
to
had
play.
to.
I'd love to play a campaign of all monsters, and then you're fighting against adventurers.
Yeah, that'd
Well,
be
here's the
brilliant.
interesting thing, actually, Nick. The cool thing is that there was a spin-off game of this made back in the 70s called Monsters. And that's where all of these monster stats and stuff come from. And basically, all the content from that is included in Deluxe Tunnels and Trolls. So yeah,
No
if you want to
way.
play a monster campaign, it's super easy in this one.
That's cool. That would be fun.
That's
Yeah,
wicked.
I completely agree. I mean, we love Saga of the Goblin Horde, and it's amazing. But then this game also gives you the option to play loads of different ones as well, and easily too, which is fucking cool.
That is cool.
So the last thing you need to do to make your character, other than buy gear, is to pick talents. So talents, these are basically your skills, right? The book comes with 150. Now, actually, on the previous record of this one, I got it wrong. Basically, to use a talent, all you do is you add 3 to your score. So you could take something like thievery, okay? So then you add 3 to your roll every time you pick a lock, pick a pocket, whatever. A lot of picking. Yeah?
Or pickery.
Yeah.
And then you can spend your XP, which we'll get to later, to upgrade your skill and get a +5 or a +9, and it caps at like +12, I think. So, that's basically how talents work. And there's 150 included in the book, but it encourages you to make up your own. So in the actual play that we played of Tunnels and Trolls, Nick, you chose ear to the ground, or get a read on a situation. So the uses for those are infinite, and in James you picked panache, and that's kind of a broad skill. So the book encourages you to be broad, but it does also say if you want to have a campaign where it's more specific, you can do that too. So that's
like
pretty
that.
cool.
Well, it's good because it also it promotes more character investment when you're making your character. If you've customized a skill name, you're more likely going to be like instantly more in love with your character and
Totally. Yeah.
more in tune with them.
And it makes, I guess, it makes characters more individual in a party as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
if you've got
completely.
these kind of nuances to their talents, yeah, it's nice. I like that.
Well, because let's say, for example, you could have two sort of identical thief characters. You roll the same stats, but let's say one of them picks thievery and another one picks ninjaing, right? Then the way that those two characters do their thievery and the way that they're going to use it is probably different just by virtue of the fact that they've got a different description for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one thing worth mentioning is that rogues, they do get 2 talents to begin with, whereas everyone else gets 1, and they also get 1 on every even numbered level. So by level 2, they've already got 4 talents where everyone else has got 2. So that's pretty cool.
Banging.
But let's talk about fighting.
Yes.
Ow!
Sorry, James. So here's the deal with combat. Each weapon basically gives you a certain number of dice. For example, as we mentioned earlier, a dagger gives you 2 dice. So in combat, you roll that plus any personal adds together. So, and that number represents how well you've done in the fight. Then you add that together with all of your teammates, and as a collective, you have one big number, right? You compare that to the number the monsters got, and the winner is the higher number. The loser takes damage equal to the higher number minus the lower. Simple. But here's the cool thing. The players can choose to divide up the damage to them and the damage to the monsters any way they like. So so armor in this game, the way it works is it just dots points from the damage. So let's say, for example, you take 22 damage and your fighter's got an armor that knocks off 20 points of damage. Well, he takes the first 20, then that guy will take 1 and that guy will take 1.
Yeah.
And with the monsters, you have this cool strategizing where it's like, okay, should we put all our damage into the big one and take a couple of hits from the small ones? Like, concentrate our fire, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's fun.
it's kind of
pretty
fun
awesome.
like that. It's abstract rather than simulationist, but it is pretty fucking fun. But yeah, if you lose a round of combat... Oh no, already said that. So I should point out that this method of having players choose where damage goes is actually optional, but it is also very cool and adds a different dimension.
Yeah, I like it. It makes it like a strategic kind of dimension to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a kind of a different type of strategy to any other game that we've seen,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I quite like it as well because it promotes good storytelling. Because if the players get to choose it, they get to decide. They are therefore creating the story together, and then it sort of evolves more on the player side, which is ideally, you know, always what you're trying to do is have the players sort of enjoy the story that they're doing. So if they do that, then they've like sort of made the story how they want it to go, etc.
Yeah, and you've you know, how many times do you see somebody in a movie jump in front of an attack for somebody else? And now this game just literally gives you the opportunity because you kind of do all your roles, then narrate everything. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, it's cool. And it's like if there's a big hit, say there's a big hit that would kill one character out, all right, because he takes all the damage, you can now spread the damage and then no characters die, or, you know, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Unless obviously your party doesn't like that guy.
Well, that's going to be the fun thing, you know. Let's say you've been going through combat rounds, and suddenly, you know, you've all been spreading the damage and keeping it pretty fair, but now you're all on 2 hit points. Now the conversation becomes, right, who wants to die?
Yeah, exactly. There's some tough talking going on there.
Arguments central. But yeah, anyway, that's basically 1 round of combat. Now, you can use spells as well, obviously, and ranged attacks, but we'll talk about that soon. But if you don't want to fight or use a spell, you can do a stunt, which means anything other than fighting, from running away to tripping up to somebody to pushing them over to swinging on a chandelier. That's stunts, right? And now, I should note here that the monsters don't work the same way players do. For combat, they basically have a monster rating, and it's not a fully static thing. So the monster rating can be anything from 1 to infinite, basically, and they get a number of dice with which to do combat rolls based on its rating. So a goblin, for example, is a monster rating of 20, I think. I'm not sure about that, but which means it rolls 3 dice in combat, has 10 points of personal adds, and can take 20 damage before going down like Bobby Evans' mum on a Friday night. But, and how this is all calculated, how you know that from just the number 20, is basically the monster rating is its con, and con is hit points in this game. So its combat adds are half that amount, and the amount of dice it rolls is divided by 10 plus 1. So you know all of that. And as the monster gets damaged, its rating goes down, making it weaker. So that number tells you everything you need to know about a monster. So if you did 10 damage to my 20 monster rating monster, then it goes down to a 10 and only gets to roll 2 dice. Yeah. And that's basically it.
Yeah, I like it.
Nice.
But I hear what you're saying, dear listener. I want to do a spell. When can I do a spell?
Can I do a spell?
Please, sir.
I'm getting there. Fuck's sake.
Let me spell it.
Why? Shut up. Why do our listeners... Why are you so annoying?
Why do you so annoying?
Why do you so annoying? Well, let's talk magic. So spells, right? They always work. No roll, no nothing. But they cost whiz points. So that's basically the drawback. You have a limited amount and usually worse fighting power as a caster. So some spells might have conditions which need to be met, like such as the spell "Oh Go Away," which makes monsters flee if their monster rating is lower than the caster's IQ, luck, and charisma. But in general, they basically mostly work. As I mentioned earlier, all level 1 spells can be cast by a level 1 wizard man, and from then on, they have to pay a college to learn them new ones. Whereas rogues start with 1 and blah, blah, blah. We've been through this. But are the spells wicked?
Maybe.
And the answer is yes, and mostly because of the names, right? As I mentioned, "Oh Go Away," that's a spell to get monsters to flee, right? But there's also Hocus Focus, a level 1 spell which allows you to create a focus device, which is like your staff or your wand. Or how about, "Oh, there it is," which reveals invisible items. And obviously, for those that listen to the AP, they heard "Take that, you fiend," which is your bread and butter damage spell. And there's Hidey Hold, Dingaling, Creme de la Creme, Slush Yuck, Whammy, and they're all really cool, but it's the later spells that really take the cake. Breaker Breaker, a 4th level spell, makes armour brittle like glass.
Awesome.
So you cast that, somebody does a stunt, chuck a rock at it, and suddenly the enemy is completely naked, which is cool. Unlucky Bees surrounds the recipient with a tornado of bees.
That sounds like an insult to bees, doesn't it? Unlucky bees.
Unlucky bees. But the thing is, yeah, when is seeing a swarm of bees ever a lucky thing? I think it didn't really need to be named Unlucky Bees, just shitloads of bees.
Yeah. Ton of bees.
Ton of bees.
It's a bunch of bees.
You know, it's funny because I like these spells because when you see something like in a movie or whatever, you never really see them say the spell name. Like, you don't see somebody standing there going, magic missile. Where they usually go, take that, you fiend. But I was thinking about that, you know, that scene in Lord of the Rings with the Balrog, you know, where spoiler for a 20-year-old movie, but where Gandalf gets, the thing goes around his foot and he gets dragged down, and you know he's going, fire of Arnor, flame of Udun, and he's doing that, and then at the end he just goes, oh, go away. That would be amazing.
That would be good.
That would be good.
Here's a cool one now. At level 18, you can gain the Born Again spell, which triggers upon your death, causing you to be reborn when you die, which is pretty fucking cool.
That is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you, let's say if you had a wizard as a bad guy in your campaign, and you can't figure out why he keeps coming back every time you kill him, it's because every time he comes back to life, he casts that spell.
It'd be interesting to know like how many whiz points that takes, because if you just killed him like maybe 7 times, then he'd never come back.
It is hundreds, I know that. So you have to have a pretty high fucking wizardry score just to even be able to cast it. It's like 300 and something.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's like that would be decades of play to get good enough to have that spell, basically. But yeah, how does magic work in combat? Well, if you cast a spell, it pops off and you still get to make your combat roll. So in effect, you know, casters do get to do 2 things in a turn, which isn't like the most realistic way of doing things. But then the combat is quite abstract anyway, rather than simulationist. So who cares? I mean, it's a nice, easy, simple way of resolving spellcasters, you know. So shut up. A well-placed, well-used spell can really turn the tides of a fight as well. So you've done a spell, had a few fights, killed a few grubs. What now? How do I do a level up? Well, fuck's sake, stop asking me questions, listeners. Throughout the game, the GM will give you adventure points. And you may get these for creative problem solving, making a successful check, or killing a ghoul. You can even get them for casting spells in decent ways, right? But you spend these on your attributes to increase one. Basically, all you do is spend the amount of adventure points equal to 10 times the score you'd like to increase. So to go from a 18 to a 19, you spend 180 adventure points. Simple.
Ooh. Nice.
And your level, right, is determined by your highest attribute divided by 10. So if you've got an attribute of 21, that means you're a level 2, and as a wizard you can now cast level 2 spells. Fucking hell, a burp was just rising up then and I was really fighting it back. And so then if you get to like if you get a skill up to 41, you're a level 4 character. I mean, all of your other skills may be really terrible, but if you've got a 41 in something, that means you're level 4 for whatever reason, and it means that characters can be min-maxed, but not without a lot of effort. At each level you gain a new talent as well, which I mentioned earlier, and warriors also get an extra dice for combat per level, so it's within your interest to specialise, basically. And this is roughly how the game plays. It's made with a few things in mind: simplicity, rulings not rules, and theatre of the mind, and of course the quick, brutal combat. Now, there's a few situational rules, other ways of using existing classes, and a whole segment in the book about optional elaborations to the rules, which is actually really fucking good. And one of the best things that we talked about is the ability to play monsters. But this being the Deluxe Edition, what's the difference between this and the other versions? Well, the first 166 pages of this book are the rules. That's more or less the same as 5.5 edition or the French 8th edition with some minor tweaks. For example, in the old ones, warriors didn't get a bonus on their weapons for each level. They just were able to use every weapon, but they did get double armor. But now they get both. And that's basically it. You know, it's roughly the same game, but Everything after that is either new or optional, like rules for martial artists that I mentioned, Berserker Warriors, a section on GMing the game well, along with a bunch of cool DM tools, a table of steeds, including lizards, frogs, eagles, all of that shit. Unfortunately, James, no bees.
Well,
no bumblebees. No.
I quit.
Yeah, I quit.
I would say if you don't get that joke that we've just made, go and listen to the actual play, because there is something very funny that happens in there. And the book rounds off with an atlas of Troll World and a few adventures which weren't in previous versions. Troll World is basically Ken St. Andre's home setting, and it's every bit as bonkers as you'd expect. There's a continent shaped like a dog. There's a continent shaped like a dog called Rolf. And essentially, it's like a fantasy world where trolls were the original race that inhabited the earth, and that's basically it.
Fire of Arnor, flame of Udun. Oh, go away.
So, is the game good or is it whack? Let's have a bit of a discussion. We've played one session, we've gone through the book and what it is. We know Ken St. Andre is a badass, but Nick, what do you make of this system? What do you like? What do you don't like?
I like it. I like the simplicity of it. I like the. I love the spreading out of damage. I like the little template we were using for fights. The way it's done quite in an abstract way rather than a simulationist way. It's really cool. It's really straightforward as well. Two sets of two groups roll dice, and then the difference is the damage. Simple as that. It's fun and it's cool. It's got that OSR feel to it because obviously I'm more accustomed to playing them than actually games that came from that era. But no, so far so good, and I really like it. It's got a cool feel to it, and it's nice and easy. And I love that you can. My favourite part is that customization of being able to just here's what your spells do. You tell me what they're called, and that I really enjoyed. And I've not been able to do that in a game before, and it was a nice little touch that you don't really think about until you get the opportunity to do it, and it was really good because then them spells feel really personal to you because you've created their words, if you like, that make them operate. So really cracking so far. One game in, and I love it.
I think you mean talents, but that's absolutely fine. Yeah,
sorry, talents.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's weird because they often. I think with some OSR games, there can be this tendency where you roll up a character, and because the rules are sparse and quite simple, you don't really get a feel for a character until a couple of sessions when you play them. But just something as simple as naming your talents, or things like this, like or the specialist rule, where you kind of talk through a talent with your GM and decide the special thing it does. Like little touches like that just help you put your little personal edge on the character from the get-go, and I like that a lot as well.
Yeah.
James, how about you? You're first time ever playing a fairy in a game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's quite fun. Obviously, against the grain type fairy, but it's interesting playing up to the stature of the fairy. I really like that. I do. If anyone's ever listened to our actual plays, they are. Naturally comedic because of how we play. That's just usually how we are at the table. But I really, really like the fact that it is so heavily theatre of the mind. Like, there's loads of things you could do, like loads of games that they have grids and maps and all that stuff, which I absolutely love and adore and think is awesome. But for Tunnels and Trolls specifically, I think it works perfectly with theatre of the mind, because everything is so abstract in like the battles and all that stuff. It's just like, right, distance isn't going to mean a thing, so it's all descriptive, it's all like that. And like Nick's saying, and we've discussed with the customizations of the characters and the simpleness of how you create the characters. It sounds a bit complicated, if you're just hearing us talk about it, like, oh yeah, if you choose this, then it's double this minus that and do this. But when you're actually doing it on paper, it's really quick, really simple, and you're just like, sweet, that is a fast and quick character change because I've chosen this thing.
You know what, as well, like, I think what I appreciate more than anything is I do like simple games. I like simple games that are up to players and GMs to narrate things, and this is very much geared towards that. But I don't like them to be so simple that there's not enough meat or not enough to the strategy. I mean, part of the reason why I'm so enjoying Cypher is the game itself is easy to play, but character options are plentiful, and this game kind of does something similar. I mean, it's a completely different game, but and as
No, but there's
James,
parts. Do you know what? There's parts to it, and I wouldn't be surprised if little bits of Cypher's system might have been inspired by this old game, Tunnels and Trolls.
A good point actually, because like Cypher system sort of does away with distance. Either you're in this fight or you're in this fight, or you're doing a ranged attack or you're doing a spell ability. You know what I mean? It's like let's just get to what makes the fights fun. I mean, in a movie, you would never see the hero running for ages. Everyone's in the fight. It's like, fuck's sake, that fight's really far away.
I best get there.
Yeah, so I mean, I do like it. I like it a lot for that reason, and I think there's a big difference. Like, playing something like Savage Worlds, and I mostly use a grid with that, or D&D, and obviously we use terrain for D&D. The thing about it is that playing a fight theatre of the mind in those games always feels like it's not the best way to do a fight, but for some you have to, And this is like, a game is made entirely with that in mind. There's almost no point in using miniatures for this game. I will say this, there is a segment that talks about miniatures, and there is one useful way of doing it, because essentially what you can do is, so the fights are broken down, so it's like, okay, there's this big mad melee. Either you're in that fighting, or you're out of it doing something else, or you're stunting, right? But what if there's more than one fight going on in the same room? What if a character says, for my stun, I'm going to single this guy out and get him up onto the rafters and start fighting him? Then there's two fights going on, and you still roll it the same way, but there's just two fights going on at the same time, right? So miniatures can be handy for that, just to know who's fighting who. But other than that, it's basically completely theatre of the mind. So yeah, I like that a lot. But finally, I don't know if you guys have got a chance to look at the book itself, but I've sent you a couple of images with the artwork and things like this. So what do you make of the art? And then I'll talk about the presentation.
So we got some classic black and white kind of OSL style art, but it's pretty cool actually.
Yeah, I think it's really well drawn.
It is.
They there's certain elements of it where they decide to put more detail in certain characters. Some of them has got like some really nice shading in it. Others are sort of outlined, sort of people with like a little bit of shading, and then there's like a monster in the background who's much more detailed and stuff.
I like the one where the monster's carving Mom into some rock.
It's really weird. The thing is, because the game does lean into the goofiness, probably not quite as hard as DCC, but it does a little bit. And there's just an image of like a monster carving Mum into a rock, and it's like, it's really bizarre. Like, there's some artwork in it that you go, fuck, that's really fucking cool and quite serious. And then there's some that's just like, this game, like there's one of a fairy riding their steed, and it's a frog, and the frog is just about to leap into the air. One of the things I really like, a nice little touch, because a lot of OSR and old school books, they're black and white, line art and things like this, but the Tunnels and Trolls Deluxe includes like a couple of pages, just some colour pages, right? And it's got a map of Troll World in there, full colour. Then it's got like all of the old artwork used for the previous covers and explanations of them. And one of them, what I really, really thought was cool, and you've got to see this. I'll probably put it on our Facebook. Is there's this one where they wanted the artwork for 5th edition to be a troll jumping out from the darkness in a dungeon, and all of these adventures reacting, right? Beautiful piece of artwork. And then for the 30th anniversary one, they wanted the same picture but 1 second later. And as a result, you can see that the fighter's died and he's on the floor, and his torch bearer, like the guy carrying his torch, is running forward. And now their swings have advanced slightly, and another troll's coming out behind the one that jumped out of the darkness. It's just like,
it's awesome, really clever,
really nice, like little touch. The presentation is amazing, and do you know, one of the things that is really quite weird that you don't know you want until you get it is it's got really thick, luxurious paper for the pages. Ooh. And yes. It's nice. It's real nice. Nice.
High quality parchment.
Yes, high quality parchment. That's what you want.
But overall, as a game, would you guys recommend that people go out and buy this and play it, or what do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, 100% would. If you want a nice, if you like the idea of D&D, but you don't want to get bogged down by the crunch, then you try this one out. I would say it's obviously it's the best parts of D&D without the more technical or the lesser confusing stuff. Like, you know, some people might take one look at D&D and be like, "Whoa, too much." But hopefully this game gives you the same feel, but with a little less stress.
Like even if you're a D&D buff, if you've never played Tunnels and Trolls, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, to be honest, we hadn't.
Yeah, this would be a walk in a park.
We hadn't for a very long time, but now we have. It's bloody good.
Difficult to find though, I'll put it that way. But you can still find old versions online. This is on Drive-Thru-RPG if PDFs are your thing. And all the old versions are actually as well, and they're still the same price they were in the 90s. So if you don't have 25 quid to spare on this book, just grab 5th edition, man, and it's like £1.50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
yeah.
We'll leave it there. I guess we all recommend it, so go out and play it. And listen to our AP. If you're not convinced, give that a listen, and just you'll see how awesome it is, especially the combat and how fucking quick it is.
Yeah, and if you have played Tunnels and Trolls, or you are a regular Tunnels and Trolls player, let us know what some of your best parts of it are, and if our APs are doing it justice.
All right, let's do some electro letters.
In the future, you will be able to send a letter or parcel from anywhere on the planet. This, sir, is the electro letter.
Ooh.
All right, so we asked you, listeners, you have to create the most annoying dungeon ever created to really, really get under your player's skin. And we asked, what traps, monsters, and features do you make to make your players rage quit? Now, we come in with a simple one from James Tomasson. He says, rust monsters in a beholder's lair. So for those not
the album.
Yeah, exactly. It's the new album by Metallica. Rust monsters, yeah, in a beholder's lair. So that for those not in the know, a rust monster is a thing that GMs use when they want to destroy player equipment because they've got too powerful. Rust monster rusts equipment to the point of unusability. And a beholder, obviously, they've got all these eye beams. They can freeze you, turn you to stone. So it's just the ultimate 1-2 punch, really.
Nasty.
Where's my gear gone? You look down, you look back up, beam to the face, you turn to stone, you're dead.
Nasty.
Yorkers Rex, he says, take every normal convention of the game and turn it on its head. Monsters gain hit points when damaged. And healing causes damage. Pit traps are mounted in walls, so simply opening a door causes the PCs to fall into the room, impaling them on the spikes embedded in the opposite wall. Weird gravity traps. Spiral staircases lead nowhere to an endless loop teleportation trap. Bonus points if you can make someone fall down the staircase forever.
Spiral staircases. That sounds like something out of David Bowie's Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the worst thing is that often, even if a staircase is really long, the only difference between a long staircase and a short staircase in an RPG is the way you describe it. Because people go, yeah, I'm going up the staircase, and you go, yeah, you go up, it's a few short steps and you're at the top. And in this one, it's like, okay, it's a really, really long staircase, and eventually you get to the top, you're tired, you're sweating. But in this case, you'd have to, if it was endless, you just go, yeah, you keep going. Well, and what? And then what? Yeah, well, you keep going up the stairs. Right, then what? Well, you're going to be surprised. You're still going up.
Actually, why is there a big bell ringing in my head about that? We've played a game where we was going down a staircase for ages.
Yeah, it was.
What game was it?
Oh, it was actually one of our actual plays. Yeah, it was one of our actual plays.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, because it was the oh god, Curse of the King's Spire. That's
the one.
Yeah.
And there's a really, really long staircase at the end, and you guys were talking to the torturer in there. Also, another good actual play recommendation if you listeners want to listen to that one. But Henrik Erlandson comes in, and he says, and he's written this with Google Translate, so strap yourself in. All walls and intersections look exactly the same. It's full of slides that lead back to the bottom of a hollow pit that has a long staircase to get out of. Teleportation traps that send it to various places in the cave at random. Rotating floors and walls that are silent so players don't notice the sections of the map rotate when in it. I actually think that's a pretty cool idea. Does that mean I'm a shitty GM?
No, that's cool. That's like... has anyone seen Cube from the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
That's like that.
That's actually a pretty funny idea. I mean, also getting players to kind of notice that the layout keeps changing, especially... we just talked about Tunnels and Trolls, where it's encouraged that players draw their own maps. Imagine how fucking confusing they get. You go, okay, I go south back into the room we were in, but suddenly it's changed, and they're like, well, hang on, you said the room to the south was this, but now it's this, and it just starts getting really confusing. All maps are out the window. I like the idea.
Yeah, I like that, sir.
It's funny that they say about all walls and intersections looking exactly the same, because there's a video out there that you can watch of Gary Gygax GMing, and it's really boring the way he describes the dungeon. He just goes, unless I say otherwise, all walls are of hewn stone with moss on them. You head down a corridor that's 10 feet wide and 10 meters long. You enter a room that's 30 meters wide and 20 centimeters, and it's like super fucking boring. So,
come on, Gather.
His dungeon basically sounds like that.
Oh no.
Anyway, Henrik continues, and he says, all monsters are illusions that disappear so that no loot exists. All treasure consists of large, heavy stone copper statues. Nothing in the dungeon is dangerous, so no danger exists. And this is where the Google Translate gets a bit weird, because he says, slut boss. A boring puzzle golem that is immune to damage and can only be defeated with the help of everyone to collect all the statues. And now, the guy's a genius. I mean, I like Slut Boss. I like him a lot.
Oh yeah.
It's like, what did you do in D&D today? Well, there was this boss that could only be defeated if we carried 1,000 statues to the door. So we spent 8 hours doing that, basically.
You met Slut Boss.
Yeah, that's Slut Boss, mate. He does that to everyone. But once you
I
get
am
to know him,
Slut Boss, a boring puzzle golem.
carry my statues.
Do it
Do
now.
not dare disobey, Slut Boss. So yeah, that's basically it. He says, but he also says, when the boss is defeated, the statues are destroyed, and when it was not very dangerous, very little experience points. Oh yeah, because all the monsters, they don't do anything, so you do all of that 1 XP at the end. Yeah.
Nasty.
Slut Boss is like a CR1 enemy, but there's just the fact that he can only be defeated by moving a bunch of statues for hours and hours.
That's horrible.
Daniel Irwin, he says, I once, when I was a lot younger, made a dungeon that literally had nothing in it. No monsters, no traps, no loot, nothing. There was method to my madness in that it was the creatures within had escaped on and were on the loose. The players were not impressed with spending 2 hours tromping through the whole thing to find nothing. Lesson learned.
Wow.
I don't think that's really a terrible idea for an adventure, where all the monsters have gone, I'm fucking fed up of this. We spend all our time in this shitty cave, adventurers coming down here killing us, and we have to repopulate every few months. I'm sick of it. And so they launch an attack.
But on holiday.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. And then all the now all the adventurers have to get to like some sunny beach somewhere where all the goblins are sitting there drinking out of coconuts, terrorising people.
They sort of come over to them
and there's
to get there. Yeah, and then they're just like, please go away. Please.
At the Copacabana attack!
No, the way you get the goblins to disappear is by going down early and putting down towels on their chairs.
Oh, yes.
Very good.
Man. But yeah, the funny thing is that what you should have done there, Dan, is what you should have done is just, as soon as they get in the dungeon, just go, everyone give me a investigation check. And once they do, you just go, you search the dungeon and there is fuck all in there. It looks like they've gone. And not only that, but you find a ticket stub for a holiday to Spain.
Yeah, travel brochure.
I just want to say I'm extremely sorry for the way I'm about to pronounce this name, but Majek Jtowiak says, prison labyrinth made out of a series of identical rooms with 3 identical portals on the wall. One portal leads to another identical room. 2 others teleport players back to the first cell. No monsters, no traps, no NPC, and most important, writing down the sequence is forbidden for some reason and will change the arrangement of the rooms. Left, right, middle, left, 50 rooms should be enough. First up, I think we're seeing a theme here that if you want to make a shitty dungeon, that things need to be identical. And I actually think somehow we've stumbled across like some good advice, because if you think about it, if you want to create a fun dungeon, which is the name of my new daycare service, by the way, what you need to do is make rooms unique and memorable, right? Because everyone's saying, and also populate it with things for the players to do. I mean, that should be obvious anyway, but yeah. I've seen the theme here is like, it seems to be like identical rooms and nothing to do.
And nothing in it, yeah.
This one I like a lot. Shogun Pumbaa, he says, mimic everything. Doors, ladders, chairs, pots, even latrines. Everything's a mimic. And I like that a lot, man. I actually think
that's
that
fun.
could be a fun puzzle, you know.
That could be a fun, like, one shot.
Let's say you're doing
very
a
short
key
adventure.
hunting puzzle in a dungeon, right? And you have to get the key to this door. There's usually some elaborate puzzle or a fight before you get the key or whatever it is. But in this case, you know, the monster, this goblin that you've beaten, he tells you straight up. He goes, look, you know, the key's in that fucking room. It's easy. It's in that room in a treasure chest. You go in. There's 100 all laid out, all identical. 99 of them are mimics.
That'd be a very fun adventure or a very short adventure.
Well, it'd probably suck. I mean, let's say maybe 5 then. And the players like putting their hand in. Oh shit!
Come out no hand.
Shogun carries on and he says, also humanise every creature, family ties, goals, ambitions. If the rage don't get them, the guilt will. And,
Very good.
The sad thing is maybe I suck as a GM because I already do that where I humanise monsters massively.
Yeah.
Like the standard joke is them clutching a picture of their family just as you cut their head off or something like this.
Or if they're dying and they're like,
Can you just make sure my kids are okay?
tell my wife I love her. It's the worst, yeah.
There was a really good one actually at the end of Foreign Beggars when you kill Snake Boy and then spoiler if you haven't already listened to that, and he's like well, I was going to use all this money to feed my son, and you're like, oh, don't tell me that, oh bloody hell, and he's like, well, I was going to buy him a new wheelchair too.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think I like that one. I like that one a lot. Conrad Erasmus Neubert, he says, I'd funnel them into a hallway with only pit traps and no actual floor. Every other step they do is an agility or dex save and 1d6 falling damage. Then they have to get out of the hole, and then the next step is another save and another roll of minimal falling damage. Now, I like that one for the particular nastiness of the fall damage also being a really small amount. So it just chips away.
Oh,
it's like hours and hours.
Just thinking of it in your head, they're having to go through, just a hallway of traps, and it's just like, ow, ow.
It's like the rake room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, that was a trap I actually used. Thanks for reminding me, Nick. It was, I was inspired by that bit in The Simpsons where Sideshow Bob is walking through that field of rakes, and it just keeps going.
Ryan's character got battered.
Yeah, and it was basically they just walk into this room in a dungeon and it's just full of discarded rakes. One of their old characters was on the other side, like beaten and bloody, like he's already gone through the room of rakes. And these guys are like, they just look at it and just go, oh shit.
So good.
But yeah, another very annoying trap, Conrad continues, would be a raised stepping stone saying trap on it in bold letters. But that stone would be the only tile in the room that doesn't activate a trap with arrows coming from above.
Very good.
Yep.
Now, John Stevie comes in with one last one, and all he did is share a link to the first edition Tomb of Horrors. And as we all know, that is a very deadly dungeon. But even better than that, this is kind of unrelated, but I just want to talk about it, is Nick's character in our last D&D game, Dave Dishington. He was a gardener, and he basically, as part of his downtime activities once, spent like a month designing a new hedge maze for a really posh guy. Using his gardening skills, and as he did so, he decided to make it into a hedge maze dungeon, and you rolled a crit on it, and the guy cried. The dungeon was so beautiful, and it was. We ended up calling it the Plume of Horrors because it's like the most deadly dungeon. Yeah. And it's also a hedge maze.
It was awesome. It was so much fun.
But the cool thing is Dave Dishington's now dead, so nobody remembers the layout of that dungeon. And I'm thinking, at some point you guys might go and visit it.
Hello.
Oh.
Yes.
Yep. Which would be fucking awesome. Actually, we do have one last one that comes in from Jacob Men. He says, make the architect of the dungeon a madman woman with doors. Is he... wait a minute. Before we dissect this email, is he saying he puts a madman, brackets, woman? Is he saying that all women are madmen?
No, I think he's a madman or woman.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he should have put a slash then, not a brackets. Jacob, take your sexism and go elsewhere, motherfucker. Anyway, so the architect of the dungeon is a madman woman with doors to nowhere a la Winchester Mansion. But then have them randomly go to another location, random location, teleport pads to other places in the dungeon. an army of clone NPCs with the same name who want to be helpful but aren't at all, and the players can never tell they've met before and which they haven't. So a disembodied guide for the dungeon who is only there to mock and mislead the players but occasionally gives real hints.
Oh.
Mate, do you know what? That dungeon, imagine if the dungeon was full of like just identical blokes called John, right? And every time they go into another room, they're like, John's like, okay, when we get to the next room, I'll tell you the secret to unlocking this whole thing, man. They get him, there's like, oh, John, good, it's you. And he's like, what? Who the hell are you?
What's going on?
And then they turn around, there's another one behind him, and he's, it would just be awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That is it for your crappy dungeon ideas. But let's get on to the regular questions, because we've got one in from Owen Lean and another one as well. Owen Lean asks, what are you most looking forward to reopening when the world has finished LARPing pandemic? Owen Lean has been a regular guest on the show, friend of the show, and he is a writer in real life, yet he types things like that. Yeah. Sort it out. Anyway, what he means is once pandemic is over, what you're looking forward to, and we'll basically take getting around a table again and gaming as a given, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pub gardens.
Yeah, pub gardens is a good one. I drinking at home is all good, but getting outside and having a drink with your mates, maybe a little cheeky cigarette.
I mean, we did it.
That's the one.
We did it, social distance the other day, but it's just not the same as sitting at a table. Literally shoulder to shoulder with a pint glass that's just been poured out of the tap and it's nice and cold.
Yeah, man, in a pub garden, it's the fucking best.
Yeah.
It's the fucking best.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to going out to dinner as well. Not that I do that often, but like Wagamama, for example.
No. But just knowing that you can.
Yeah, totally. And
But part of me worries that the new normal of going out for dinner is going to be so horrible that it's not worth it.
I'm also looking forward to fast food.
Yes.
Like grabbing
I tried to order a McDonald's last night and through Uber Eats, and it took an hour and a half to get cancelled.
I hate, and also like Uber Eats. Whenever you order McDonald's, it's good, man, and it's good for a hangover, but it's always fucking cold. I don't know how they manage it. They've got these insulated bags, but I think it's when they've like bagged it and shit. McDonald's will often just leave it there on the side. And then the Uber guy gets there.
That's it, exactly.
So,
then he gets stuck in traffic, and before you know it, it's fucking freezing.
Yeah, one of my favourite things as well is getting a fucking McDonald's at a drive-thru and eating it while I'm driving.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's the best.
Just like, nom, nom, nom.
It's
Nom, nom, beep, beep.
No, I mean, I drive well, but it's just, I really like eating and driving for some reason. It's just a nice thing to do. Anyway, we got one last one that comes in from Anon, and he says, considering the Black Lives Matter movement, what can we do to involve more people of colour in our games? Also, do you think companies should be making more of an effort to include people of colour in their rulebooks? Probably not going to answer that one. The only reason I read that...
We don't do politics, really.
Not really, but here's the dizzle. The only reason I read that out is because don't send questions like that. We are wrong people to ask about serious matters, so shut it. All right, well, that is it for your questions, and thank you very much for sending those in. We really liked your dungeon, your bad dungeon ideas as well. That's pretty good. I mean, what we might do, and this is just an empty promise that'll probably never happen, but is do an AP based on all of these suggestions. It might be the most boring thing you've ever listened to, but yeah. All right, let's do an outro, shall we?
Goblin. 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 Goblin.
All right, so listen. We need money. All right. No, I'm not going to start like that. No. All right. That's so stupid.
Listen, right.
This is a robbery. This is a polite robbery. No.
This is a polite robbery. Put your hands up.
So Patreon, we've got Patreon tiers over there now, and you get certain shit for being a patron. We don't get any content behind paywalls, but there are certain things, certain levels that you can do, so go over and check those out. We have a $1 tier, obviously, a bong guy, and we call the patrons our Dark Army. So go over to patreon.com/3T RPG podcast. And check out those. And if you want to donate, please do. Because bear in mind, if the money stops, the show stops. All right?
Motherfuckers. That's it. You've been warned. This is a threat.
But
Stop threatening the listeners, please.
What is wrong with me today? Why do I have such contempt for them today? What is it? Well, I don't know what...
Yeah, it's because of all the bloody questions they ask whilst you're doing the main subject. For fuck's sake, shut up.
Yeah, I'm bored of it now. No, but seriously, thank you very much for all those that do donate. And if you do want
absolutely.
to, help the show out, but you don't have the money to subscribe on Patreon for months on end, then buy one of our products on Drive-Thru RPG, 3T RPG Publishing. We've got an adventure out there. We've got 2 little toolkits for your games, so go and check those out, and they're cheap as fuck, so just go and buy one of those. And if you want to contact us, 3trpgpod@gmail.com, and of course we're on all the social medias, so send in your shizzle and we'll read it out on the show. Now, I've been Harrison Hunt.
I've been Nick Lambslice.
And I've been James Pumpkin.
And remember that D20s are cool, but 20Ds, now that is a good time.